my guess is we'll be done no later than 9 o'clock and maybe even before that. I want to quickly go over the email that I sent you and show you a few things regarding that. Some of these, Angie, are more geared towards you than they are to Keegan because they're first year stuff. So if you do go out to these two URLs that are out here, what you will see is this first one. This has got all the lectures that I gave last year for the HTML part of the class on it. But before that, it also has the PowerPoint lectures. And I went through and did the PowerPoints for all 20 of the chapters that are in the book. I'm not saying they're fantastic or anything else, but if you wanted to get an idea of what the class is about, what the HTML part of the class is about, etc., you could go there. And the other URL, same kind of thing, but it's the jQuery and the JavaScript. What I'm also hoping to do, and I did not do this with the class that Keegan and Maya were in last semester, but since I have a little time, from what I understand, after next week, after Thursday of next week, so basically starting with a week from tomorrow, and then going for the rest of the month, I'm supposed to work at home. Now, they're probably, Rankin very well might encourage us to take a week of vacation during that time. Personally, I don't really want to take a week of vacation when, for lack of better words, I'm quarantined in my house. If I'm working anyway, if I'm in the house anyway, I might as well be working. That said, what I'm hoping to do during the rest of the month, so we're talking like whatever that is, like May 8th through May 31st, is two things. First, I want to do this website, and I want to have it in there from start to finish, and I will send out the URL for that. And then I want to start to get into the Node.js stuff. That is what we're going through for certain in fall. So just so you've got an idea about those two things. Now I'm gonna whip around a little bit here because there's a couple of other things that I wanted to show you. Hopefully you got this from me this morning. You should have. Rankin's trying something new, and I really and truly do give them a lot of credit for this. They're having a virtual college job fair May 19th and May 20th, where if you follow the steps that are on here, you can go and sign up and talk to prospective employers. Now, you may not want to do that, especially you, Angie, just because of the fact you only have one class under your belt, so to speak. But if you are interested, you can do it. That's all I'm saying. There should be representatives there from IT. The other thing that you might want to ask them, one or both of you, is you might want to say, hey, I'm in my first year, but I'm looking possibly for some kind of an internship. Now, I know, Keegan, you work. I don't know if you work or not, Angie. That this whole thing is your business for both of you, but it's something that if you're interested, you might want to check out. That's all. And finally, the last thing, and I brought this up yesterday, and I realized you weren't here yesterday, Keegan, no problem. But I gave this out, and this is that I changed it from mid-semester to end of semester course evaluation. All right. I've already had a couple of the second year people who were like, well, how do we send this in to you? Yeah, there's no anonymity to it. All right. I guess what I could have done is I probably could have had you send it. I could have created an account someplace and had you just drop them off on there. But I probably still could track down who gave them to me. All I ask is that people be honest. And Angie, you probably don't know this, but when I've given these kinds of evals, the one that I do at mid-semester, I leave the room for a half an hour. And I have the students just, I show them how to print stuff out on our printers. And that's normally what I do. Plus, at the end of the year, normally Ms. Bruggeman comes in and she gives a different kind of an eval. All right. And I leave. That's about half an hour long. I don't think she's going to do that this semester, to my knowledge, but at least this gives you a chance to, to say something. The bad thing about doing it the way I've done it is the course is basically over. So if there was a problem that you had with the course, it's too late to change it now. But the good news is it's not too late to change it for the people who take it next year. One thing that Evan and I, we've been talking electronically for the last couple days, we both agreed maybe we don't need an end of semester project like we did, but maybe we should spend 2 or 3 more weeks on object-oriented programming. Maybe even the first programs that you got were too much, and maybe we should have done it even slower than we did it. And we're talking about really wanting to coordinate on that and hopefully at least do a better job on that. All right, so let's see, did I miss anything? Again, as it says there, today we'll cover chapter 25. Tomorrow I'm going to go over a complete MobiRise example, including saving it through the Rankin server. All right. Keegan, I know that you have a GitHub account. Angie, did you sign up for a GitHub account?
I did.
All right. I will show you then tomorrow. It's pretty simple. We're going to run through the steps together on how you can take any project that you've done, be it a project in HTML, if you created a website. Keegan, if you wanted to put your project from last semester, like for example, the midterm that we did, anything like that. I'll show you how to do that tomorrow. It really and truly won't take that long. All right. That will be the last official lecture. I'm still supposed to get everybody together every day. So next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, even though they're lab days for you to work on your portfolios, all right, I'll still get together with you, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of class. Like I said, just to say, any questions, etc. All right. So the next thing that I wanted to mention to you, and we're going to do this in just a second. Oh, where are you? Let's see. I'm trying to change a share, and it's not showing me a bunch of the stuff that's out there on the system. So I'm looking for it in here right now. So there it is. All right. This is very small, and I understand it. I'm going to make it bigger, but what I want you to look at, do you see the table of contents for our textbook on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. We went through all of section 1. We went through all of section 2. We went through all of section 3 except for chapter 15. So that means out of the first 16 chapters, we went through 15 of them. We went through 17, we went through 18, we went through 19. Now, I could go through chapter 20 with you, but that's basically what's in chapter 20 is what the old AWD1100.NET framework with web databases class was all about. So I'd be giving you 4 hours or less out of a class that's really 80 hours. So I'm not going to. All right. We did not go over chapter 21 on files or chapter 22. We did go over chapter 23. All right. And between 20 and 24, that's, like I said, that's the stuff in the AWD1111, the old version of the class. Today, we're going to just spend a little bit of time going over chapter 25. And I've never even deployed one of these applications. I have deployed ASP.NET applications, and it's not that different from what they do in here. All right. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to go through chapter 25. I gave you some programs from chapter 25, and I just wanted to talk to you about single document interfaces, SDIs, and multiple document interfaces, MDIs. And whether you realize it or not, you already know what an SDI is. And the reason for that, the reason I can say that is that's what we built in the first part when we were working on the database thing, when we had the 21 forms. Those were SDIs. Those were single document interfaces that went, they were each their own form. They had their own identity, whatever you want to say. On the other hand, when you create a multiple document interface or MDI application, technically you could put everything under, you could have like mini forms that would fit under the same form. And if that doesn't make sense, we're going to talk about it in just a second. I have shown you a little bit on how to add menus to a form earlier. We'll look at it again. And at the end of the chapter, we'll look at how you can add your own toolbar to a form, how you can add your own help information to a form. And they also in here talk about the tab control. So we'll do that, and that pretty much will put what we're doing for the book to rest, so to speak. So what they show you, let's just jump to here. There are two applications on this page. I'm making it small on purpose. The first one is an SDI. In other words, notice that each form can be open. Each form could be a different size. Each form could be the same size like we did it, but you can have multiple forms open at once and they're all open on their own. Now you might look at this one and say, well, that's the same thing here. No, they're all open inside of this gray thing. This is one interface that has multiple documents in it. These are single interfaces, each of which have their own document in there. So again, the key takeaway is with a single document interface in this example, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 documents and 5 interfaces. In the example down here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 documents, but only one interface. All right. There are times you might want to do this where you might want to put multiple forms inside of the same interface like this. More often than not, you're going to want to do it this way. And they do go over this on the previous page, and they talk to you about the difference between a single document interface, whereas it says each form runs in its own application window, and a multiple document interface. All right. Whereas it says a container form called the parent contains one or more child forms. The advantage they mention here of a multi-document interface is the parent can make it easier to organize and manage. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense to do that. For instance, the difference between doing this and doing this, let's just assume, for example, that I wanted to walk you through a tutorial that had 6 steps in it. I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could have 6 forms inside of the same form if I wanted to do that. Now, to me, it would make just as much sense to do it this way and go from form to form the way we did it. But in the past, we have had students build a fairly simplistic MDI just so they can see what it's like. All right. So they go through and they mention this is what we did. So how to use a startup form. That was our beginning form. Now, sometimes what you do in lieu of that, sometimes even before you have this startup form, and you probably have heard of this before, you have what's called a splash screen. All right. And I've done that before where I show students maybe with the splash screen in here, maybe the only thing we would have put in there for a splash screen would have been the Muroc logo. That comes up for about 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, whatever you want. It fades into black, and then this comes up. All right. And with ours, you know this already, that even the opening form that we had on ours was a lot more complex than this. You know, we had, 6 buttons or whatever the heck it was, where you could go to the customers table, or you could go, etc., or you could view what was in the customers table. You could view what was in the categories table. You could view what was in the orders and order details table, etc. All right. But hopefully what you notice is this is what we did. You create the new form and you tell it to show. Also, okay, with the old form, you want to either close the current instance of the form you've got or hide it. I did a hide. All right, what's the difference? When you close a form, literally it is closed. In many ways, you're taking it out of memory. But by hiding it as we did, it made it easier and faster to bring it back up again. So they mention here, as you can see, an SDI app that consists of more than one form can begin with a startup. Normally it does. You can use the font property control to change the font for the text of the control. You can do that. All right. One thing that you have to be really leery of, and Keegan probably heard me say this last semester on more than one occasion, I have already gone out to websites that are really cool looking. They use different colors, they use different fonts, they use different whatevers. The problem is a lot of times you lose the message. People get so turned on by the actual, not the content of the form, but the look and feel of the form, that what it's about, because I've seen this before. Well, what'd you think of the website? Oh, it's beautiful, it's got this, it's got that. What about the content? I didn't even notice anything about the content. All right, so you don't want to go so nuts. Of course you want a professional looking form, whether it's a visual or a C# form or whether it's an HTML form, but you want to make sure that people still understand what it is you're trying to do. All right. They do mention in there, it says you can use a picture box to display an image on a form. That's what's in here. There's different ways that you can add images to a form in here, and a picture box is one of them. All right. Then next they talk about the tab control, and maybe you noticed this, maybe you didn't, that if you've got an application, the example they give here is fine. But let's suppose that what you wanted to do was you had some kind of a, let's assume, we'll use Rankin, all right? And let's assume that we've got two different types of registration forms. And this is for first-year students, and this is for second-year students, all right? So if you're a first-year student, you click and you get this. I realize it's not a registration form. If you're a second-year student, you click this and you get this. And again, I realize that's not a registration form. But the idea is, now, since you've got a limited amount of resources, when you set something like this up, where it's A or it's B, you can use a tab control. So this example assumes that either you want to know the future value, which says if I save $100 a month for 8 years, in other words, 100 times 12 times 8, I'm sorry, that's an 8% interest rate, $100 a year for 20 years. So 100 times 20 at 8%, at the end of that 8 years, I should have that amount of money. And you look at that, well, that looks pretty good. Yeah, it does. I don't know much of anything today that'll give you an interest rate of 8%, but you get the idea. On the other hand, over here, this is more an accounting type of thing. This says, if I've got something I paid $2,000 for and it lasts me for 5 years, how much does it go down every year? And you can see when you look here, it goes down the most in year one. It goes down from $2,000 to about a third of what that was. You probably have heard that saying, and I've asked dealers and they agree with it, that if you take a new car and drive it off a lot, that it already has lost several $1,000s worth of value. All right, and they show how to do this. This is selected index 0. This is selected index 1 of the tab control. All right. You may get a job as a C# programmer and never ever use a tab control. All right. But each tab control, as they mentioned there, contains 2 or more tabs, and you can put whatever you want in either one. All right. When you go from one tab to another, a selected index change event occurs. That's the same event that occurs, if you remember, when we had the example that we were looking at last week with databases. If you went and for a customer, you click the down arrow on the combo box and you change the customer name. Same kind of thing. All right. How to add menus to a form. You use the menu designer. You bring up the menu strip, which brings up this. All right. Just like buttons, menu options respond to click events. So if I wanted to make calculate right here and calculate right there, that's one of the reasons that I didn't have you put the code in the buttons event. You called another routine from there that would do the calculation. So now you could do it both from here and from here. You literally can set up, using the menu designer, a fairly complex menu, and you can do it literally in a matter of minutes. So this is going to give you your first option. If you want one to the right, you type here. If you want one underneath, you type there. In an ideal world, this is taken from the world of web design, but in an ideal world, you can get anywhere you want in an application in 3 clicks. So in other words, if I go here and I go here, and I've got another one underneath there, technically I shouldn't go more than 3 levels, is what the author is saying right there. All right. Or what I'm saying, I should say. All right. I don't know if there's anything new that's in there that I didn't already mention to you. You can put in a separator bar. You've all seen these kind of things. Do they show one on here? I don't see one, but it's where you get the line underneath. So sometimes if you want to categorize things, all right, you may want to use a separator bar. All right. How to set the properties? It's what I just mentioned. It's going to be in the click event. When you work with menus, here are some of the properties. All right. And as it says, text, the text that will appear in the menu for the item, that makes sense. Name is the name of the menu item you use in code. All right. Be real leery of using this. I don't like using check marks in menus. There's nothing wrong with doing it, but to me, you're adding a little bit more complexity to what you're working with, and it gets to be a little bit, for lack of better words, at times at least, hard to understand. The enabled property, well, let's assume that I'm going to have both. I can either click a menu option to do calculations, or I can click a button. If I decide, if they're both going to run the same code, if I decide that that button is going to be disabled until something happens, then the menu option should really be disabled until then also. Just like with a button, all that'll do is gray it out. All right. I don't believe in having menus that are visible and invisible. I think that many people who run programs are confused anyway. All right. So I don't believe in making stuff any harder than it happens to, than it needs to be. And just like with buttons, you can use shortcut keys with menus. It used to be, for example, for a long, long time, when you did Alt X, no matter what program you were in, and a lot of Microsoft programs still do that, that exited. It was just a shortcut. All right. So they go in how to develop MDI applications. All right. The big thing is when you come in here, you're going to have, as it says right here, is MDI container at design time, as it says, you set the property to true. That's going to be this gray thing that's in here. All right. And active MDI child will be the one that literally is running or has the focus at the current time. At runtime, as it says, you can use this to arrange the child forms. You'll see that in just a minute. So they mention here, an MDI app can also include forms that are not parent or child forms. These forms are typically modal forms, like the ones you learned about in Chapter 10. And you know what a modal form is, because an example of a modal form is a message box. It's a form that you have to close before you can continue on. If you're running a program and you've got a message box that comes up, technically you typically can't do anything else in there until you close that message box. How to write code that works with parent and child forms. All right. So look at the example, because this is one of the ones that I gave you. So notice you can have them cascade. You can tile them either horizontally or you can tile them vertically. This is a horizontal tiling, because if they were vertical, you'd have this one and that one would be underneath this, and then that one would be underneath this one. All right. And again, because people always say, well, why would you want to do one? Why would you want to do the other? It depends on two things. Number one, it depends on the application you're working with. And, quite often, if you are a programmer, there's a good chance that you or your company, you're going to be working for somebody, for somebody else. In other words, you're creating an application for them. And you might look at something like this and say, that's idiotic. I'd never want anything like that. But you know what? If they're paying my bills and they want something like that, it's fine with me. All right. So the author says you can display a list of open child forms in a menu by setting the MDI window list item property. All right. Next, they go into adding toolbars for a form. And if you look, this is a typical toolbar right here. This is adding your own toolbar. Now, I'm going to stop the run for a second, and I want to just jump to one of the programs. So hopefully what you can see on your screen now is just an empty program, and that's fine. But you may or may not know this. Up here, the area that we have up at the top of the page, if I right mouse click, the only thing that I have open right now is the standard menu. But notice there's about 20 other ones that are in there. So if I want an HTML source filtering, I can click there, and it added some stuff to here. Maybe not much, but it added something. Might have even been over here. I don't know. But the point is, you can come in and you can add whatever it is you need. Sometimes what you're going to find when you go through there, like formatting, boom. Now you may or may not have noticed it added all this stuff. It's grayed out because right now there's nothing to format because I haven't created anything yet. All right, but you can go in and you can do this. But if you look at the very bottom of what's in here, I'm going to get that one off. If you look at the very bottom, come on, it says customize. When you customize, you can create your own toolbar that has in it bits and pieces of existing toolbars, or you can even come in and create your own stuff and put that into a toolbar. All right. What's nice about that is if I've got a bunch of these toolbars over here and I use a couple things from debug and a couple things from formatting and a couple things, etc., I can put those into my own customized toolbar and either bring it up here or bring it up here on an as needed basis. So the example, the idea is, I can use it as needed and do whatever I do or do not want to do with it. All right, let's see. Oops, did not mean to do that. That's okay, we'll fix that in a minute. All right. So they go through how you can do that in here, okay? And again, it's no big thing. You can even, if you add your own options in here, what you can do is you can go and you can find your own graphic and put your own graphic in there if you want to do that. All right. Not only can you go in and add your own tool strip, but you can add tool tips. I think you all know what a tooltip is. If you take your mouse and you put it over something, it gives you a little bubble that comes up with text in it explaining how something is made. So they go through that in here and they talk to you about how you can do text that creates a tool strip and a little bit about a tooltip. All right, that's this here, how to add help information. Okay, so this would be the tooltip. The only thing is, again, two things. First of all, initial cost of asset. The author puts there as a tooltip, enter the amount it costs to acquire the asset. Is that needed when you already have that label? Okay, when in the class that you'll both be in a year from now, hopefully, the Android class, what we often do when we create an interface is we don't have any labels in there. We just have text boxes, and inside we put what's called hint text in there. So it'll say, for example, this hint text might say that, enter amount it costs to acquire asset. And as soon as you click right there, boom, that text goes away. All right. So a tooltip they define as a brief description of a control that's displayed automatically when you mouse over. Watch it, because sometimes if you put too much in there, it's just really, it can be really hard to read if you put way too much in there. All right, and that's it. Now, before we finish up, because we are just about done here, let's see. I did give you both of these programs. All right, and if you run it, here's the first one. This is the MDI. So you'll notice file, new future value, file, new depreciation. You'll notice I can move them around anywhere I want, but I can't move them outside of this container. All right, this is the parent, these are the children. But we do have it set up so we can tile them vertically, we can tile them horizontally. All right, in our actions, we can clear everything that's in here at once. We can click calculate. Well, you'll notice there's nothing in here, so there's nothing to calculate. Some people like this too, because one other thing that you can do with this is if you've got kind of a before and after type of thing, I can go in here and I can check the before. I can go in here and check the after. I'm not saying that you'll ever use these or that you ever won't use these. You'll notice if I come in there and I put 100, an interest rate of 2% for 25 years, and I click, that shows me what I'll have after 25 years. Here, if I come in here and I said I've got something that's $10,000 and the final value of the asset is 0 and the life of the asset in years, let's just say it's 10 years. And I click, boom, it shows me that. Since there's 10 years, it automatically adds the scroll bar. All right. And then finally, this is the one that's the SDI. So they build the same application in two different ways. So there's the SDI, and you'll notice same two forms. There's one, and there's the other. And again, you can move them around anywhere on the page that you like, because they're not confined to this. Technically, you could look at this as being the parent form, but they're not confined like the other ones were. All right. So tomorrow when you come in here, I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to build a fairly simple. I'll build my own electronic portfolio, okay, and add some stuff to it. If you want to use mine as a template, great. If you think, no, yours stinks, use your own. That's totally fine. We'll do that tomorrow. Again, it probably will take tomorrow, my guess is no longer than an hour, and it'll be the same thing. Do you both understand now that all you've got to do for the rest of the semester is your electronic portfolio? That said, since you will have 4 hours to work on it on Monday, 4 hours to work on it on Tuesday, 4 hours to work on it tomorrow, 3 hours to work on it approximately today, 3 hours tomorrow, that I'll expect the quality to be good. Angie, I realize this is your first pass at this, but what I'm saying is it should still, in that amount of time, and Keegan's also, and if Dominic does one and or if Maya does one, I'll expect them to look professional. All right. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Keegan, any questions on that?
No.
Okay. All right. Then I will see you tomorrow at 8:05. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.